Hi, I'm John Cullen. Welcome to another episode of Heroes of the Pandemic. In this episode, I'm joined by Dustin Stockton. And for those of you who are familiar with Dustin's work, you're probably pretty excited to see the two of us here together on the screen. So Dustin, thanks for joining us. I appreciate you being here as a guest on the show.
Hey, John, thanks for having me. Excited to be here. I think we have a lot of mutual friends. It's wild how they use censorship to kind of like keep us separated, huh?
Yeah, it's an interesting backstory that I'll share with the audience as to how you and I got introduced or how we met. But let me sort of give sort of a quick introduction, like color by numbers kind of thing, paint by numbers, and then you can fill it in. Dustin, you and Jennifer Lawrence, I guess, have been given the moniker by some folks, I guess, in the far left of the Bonnie and Clyde of MAGA, which is some moniker. And I know that you worked on the Herman Cain campaign and that you and Jennifer are both pretty conservative folks. But just kind of take it from there. I mean, the backstory, and I don't even want to, I don't want to screw up the story about what happened after the election, so I'll let you kind of get into that. But if you would kind of tell my audience that's not familiar with your work a little bit about what you've been doing and sort of, how you became famous, so to speak.
Well, yeah, more infamous than famous, I think, John. But I'm born and raised in Nevada. I was a professional poker player for a long time. And I'll get to the subject matter, like how I had certain insights to like what really happened. But I came up in the Tea Party movement. Me and my dad started a political action committee in Nevada. I ended up being the chief strategist for two of the largest Tea Party groups. That led me to be Newt Gingrich's chief copywriter during the 2012 presidential election. I was basically anyone but Romney. And so that's how I met Herman Cain. I ended up running around with him for a long while. And then Bannon hired me to do quote unquote special projects. Somewhere around 2013, 2014. I ended up doing lots of things that made the left very unhappy. I infiltrated Antifa in New York City, like undercover, a long operation there. And then I kind of took over the Bernie Sanders movement outside the DNC convention at Hillary's coronation. After the election, I continued to run around supporting Trump, founded Big League Politics and several other things. Then I started We Build the Wall. I'm the founder of We Build the Wall, the $22 million crowdsourced GoFundMe that built border wall on the southern border that Brian Colfage and Steve Bannon have been tied up legally for. They also raided us. We dealt with a pre-dawn raid. That election interference 2 months before the election kind of inspired us to throw some rallies in D.C. and do a bus tour across the country that ended up leading to January 6th. I was subpoenaed by the January 6th committee and had to testify under oath in person for more than 8 hours in front of that bullshit committee. Yeah, it's been quite a while. I've been dealing with the lawfare for several years. And to your bread and butter uh, uh, subject matter,
Mm-hmm.
I did a lot of work on COVID.
Mm-hmm.
So I ended up through Peter Navarro and Steve Bannon,
Mm-hmm.
that being part of the official national security response, like helping out with that. And so I had a lot of insights. I helped with procurement and investigation. And I met Mickey Willis and
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Judy Mikovits before, as they were preparing Plandemic,
Mm-hmm.
and was part of the group that like got when they rolled out censoring people inside their direct messages. Like we were part of that group,
Mm-hmm.
and so yeah, I've been stomped on. I've been fighting the deep state and trying to change our corrupt government for a long time.
And yet, you were hosting an event on Twitter, in Twitter Spaces, and it was called to my attention, I guess, by somebody who follows me on Twitter. And they call my attention to this event that you're hosting. And this is how we end up meeting. And so I'm looking at this thing and going, wow, he's got Laura Loomer there. He's got Matt Couch there. He's got Mindy there. And I'm not invited. It's like it felt like, not inviting Jonas Salk to the polio convention. It's like that's kind of harsh, man.
I kind of liked your Elon to the electronic vehicles convention.
Yeah,
that was another good one.
It's like,
but
yeah.
But to your credit, John, like your fans, right? Your audience immediately like called me out. They were like, "How are you doing this without John Cullen?" And to be honest, I've now had a chance to go back and watch a bunch of the videos and the work you've done. I'm super appreciative. I had probably seen some of the videos before. I just didn't credit it to you. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. But it goes to show like how eager they are to censor anyone who wants to be a truth teller. And the idea for the Twitter space, by the way, I just checked. I think we have 1,500 people already coming, mm-hmm. which means we'll probably end up with 5,000 or 6,000 listening in real That's time, great. Which I think is probably the biggest opportunity a lot of us have had to speak to people in one straight shot. So I'm pretty excited about that. Mm-hmm. But the idea was we hold a nightly conspiracy space, right? Mm-hmm. And Couch and Mindy, who are both friends of mine, and Laura Loomer, we've been discussing like how we get people talking about the other side, because the official story is just so effing ridiculous, right? Mm-hmm. Like I can't point to anything else, and I host a nightly conspiracy space. Mm-hmm. I don't know that I can point to anything where the official story and the reality are so divergent. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Now, you just became aware of my work, though, a couple days ago, right? This is literally a couple days old to you. So I'm curious, how much of the backstory do you know? Like, do you know how I got into this and like how this all happened? Like, did you get to, like, I don't know how many videos you got to watch before we filmed this thing. So
I mean, I probably spent an hour and a half, 2 hours going through, skimming through. But no, listen, my goal on this, I can't wait to have you on tomorrow night for this discussion. I think it's going to be, right, I really think it's our opportunity to open a lot of people's eyes. But what I would like to do, we have this big opportunity, and I'd like you just to kind of like walk me through what you were the key points, and I'll probably ask you some clarifying questions. That'd be super helpful to me.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so what I'm going to try and do is share my browser with you so that you can see what I'm seeing here. And that might take me a second, so bear with me.
No worries.
Using Zoom. Now, for the audience, watch this. Ooh, the audience just went, ooh. So now everybody's looking at the same thing.
I see real quick that you got Larry Clayman on there. His name jumped out at me when I was looking at your screen. I also ran Sheriff Joe's campaign several times, like throughout his career.
Oh, you're kidding me. You're kidding.
Yeah.
Oh, that
No,
is
so
that. All right, so that's awesome. So we can talk a little bit about that because I had a chance to meet Sheriff Joe during one of Larry Clayman's events. Tell you what, why don't I just point you to what I'm showing the audience right now, which is the Johnny Hoover channel on YouTube. And you can just pull that up on your browser and see what I'm looking at. And you simply go to YouTube, search for Johnny Hoover, and then you'll click on the little sheriff's badge. And when you get to the channel, you go to videos, and then sort by popular. And then we'll be looking at the same thing. And this way I can keep your feed live because this is...
all right, I got it up.
There you go. All right. So now I got your feed back here.
John, you'll just have to warn me if I'm looking goofy because now I don't have the my video feed looking.
Hang on. No sweat. No, you're fine. All right. So net of this, let me give you sort of the backstory here. The night of the shooting in Vegas, were you in Vegas? You said you're from Nevada. Were you in Vegas the night of the shooting?
I wasn't in Vegas. I left 2 nights before.
Oh my goodness. All right. So the night of the shooting, I'm in Thailand. I've been living in Thailand for years. And 10 p.m. Vegas time is 12 noon where I lived. All right. So I'm living in Thailand and it's noon as the shooting begins. So by 12:20, 12:30 noon, p.m. where I am in the afternoon, this is lighting up Twitter and Facebook. And I'm at my office. And I'm watching the stuff coming in, and now it's on, it's on Drudge Report by 10:30, 10:40. I'm watching this footage coming in, and I'm like, what? Single shooter? What the hell are they talking about? And so as Lombardo does all his press conferences that night at 1:30 in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, to me, it's in the middle of the afternoon, right? So he's, giving a press conference. I'm watching it live. I'm watching all this stuff happen live. And the cognitive dissonance in me was just, over the top. Like, no. It's like, come on. How do you know that there's not a shooter on top of the Excalibur? How do you know there's not a shooter on top of the Tropicana? 90 minutes? You got guys up on the roofs of all these hotels? Come on. There's no way you did that. No way. And as I started to piece together the individual video footage that people were recording on their phones, I shoot. There's gun guys and there's guys who shoot, right? There's guys who have big gun collections, like Dan, who you might know, have big collections of guns and don't shoot them all that often. And then there's guys who shoot twice a week.
Right.
I shoot a lot. Yeah, I shoot a lot. So when I see a video like that, I'm like, what? This is one guy, 1,000 rounds. 1,000 rounds? Really? Out a window with a bump stock? Well, as those body cam releases started to come out, I would comb through them, as did a whole bunch of other people, but I found a bunch of evidence that was rather compelling. And with that evidence, I want to prosecute Lombardo, McMahill, the rest of the crew, the FBI. I mean, at the end of the day, I was watching Mindy's video, which is excellent. In fact, no one who's ever, watched my content has ever kind of assembled a summary anywhere near that good. Like it's very, very well done. So tip of the hat to her. But I think I published like 350 videos on this topic over the course of the 2.5 years from the event until COVID showed up. And then the weird thing when COVID showed up was that Johns Hopkins was using the mapping system that I built when I used to work at Oracle. And that's the connection between me and Bannon. Steve used to run the Oracle project for the biosphere that they did in Oracle, Arizona, Many people don't know this. Steve Bannon was the project manager for that project. And I had been at Oracle leading up into that, and I left pretty much as Steve came in and did that project. But that's kind of a connection that we have through Ellison. So I was at Oracle, and this mapping system was something that was one of my early projects. And now Johns Hopkins is using it to map the pandemic. It would be like if OJ was making his getaway in your first car, and you put a kill switch in there. Like you're like, guys, that's not like my car. That's my first car.
Right. Not the same model. Like
that's my car.
I was driving as a
right.
16.
Right. So when I see that Johns Hopkins is using the system that my team put together when I was at Oracle 30 something years ago, I said, who built this? Who built this map? Because this is as deceptive as it gets. And so that drew me into the COVID world. And that's how I met Laura Ingraham. So I was introduced to Laura Ingraham and was feeding her the charts that she was tweeting out. So her charts were coming from me. And that's the book that I'm working on right now, which is called The Queen's Gambit, If You Were Laura Ingraham. Because all the research I was doing on the pandemic, she was getting it in real time. In other words, before I even had my videos out, she had the charts, she had the graphs, she knew exactly what was happening, which means as did Fox. And so the question now is, did Fox kind of shrug their shoulders and go, well, not report this? So that's kind of what that book is looking at.
Fox News is not to be trusted, by the way. to the Vegas shooting.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd left Vegas 2 nights before, but I mentioned that before I did politics, I was a professional poker player.
Right.
So I have tons of friends who, literally basically live on the Strip and play poker for a living.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And the first video that really stood out to me was one of my friends was in the Bellagio poker room,
mm-hmm.
Which is not anywhere close to Mandalay Bay. And it was a picture of them bailing out on the card room. And I don't know how many poker players you know, John, but for us to get up and run away from our chips at the table,
something's up.
Something is very, very raw, right? Like that takes an extreme action to get people to literally stand up and run away from their chips like their lives are in danger, because their lives were in danger. That was the first one. And then Dan Blazarian's video,
mm-hmm.
Where you can clearly see muzzle flashes coming from places that are not, Paddock's room.
Mm-hmm.
And then I've known Laura Loomer since she was an undercover agent for James O'Keefe at Project Veritas.
Mm-hmm.
Like she really got her start being one of O'Keefe's first undercovers.
Yeah.
And I've known her all the way since then. And she started going after Lombardo in the press conferences, and they started the harassment that she had to endure, them throwing her out, refusing to answer the questions, and her just dogged tenaciousness to continue to fight for the story. And it just became so evident. And then at the time I was also working for Gun Owners of America.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So because to us, the NRA is like you were kind of describing, right? There's gun collection guys and then there's shooters.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole bump stock story was just so ridiculous on its face, right?
Yeah.
The idea that somehow a bump stock was what was going to empower somebody to fire that many rounds that quickly. And then the whole, was it Jorge Campos? Was that his name?
Yeah.
The security guy?
Jesus.
So he comes out and my friends who are hardcore investigative reporters are like, there's a whistleblower. Listen, this is going to shock everybody. And then he disappears, right? Disappears off the face of the map. And the next time we see him is on the Ellen DeGeneres show with his handler, leading him on his little dog leash, right? And she doesn't even let him talk. It's like him nodding his head as she feeds him the story. This is the level of psyop right? For somebody who just experiences it, right? Like it was all there. And the cover up by Lombardo, I don't know what you think. This is it. I can't confirm this,
Mm-hmm.
but I think Lombardo was promised the governorship in
Mm-hmm.
exchange for the cover up. What do you think?
It's an interesting angle. I'll call your queens and I'll raise you. Lombardo lied to the FBI. You talk about having them in a vice. Lombardo sits down with Rouse. Rouse says, "So what happened?" And Lombardo says, "Well, we blew the thing, we hit the thing, And Rouse says, "Really? What about Maiteb bin Abdullah? What about Mohammed bin Nayef? What about Mansour bin Mukran? What role did they play?" And that's why you see Lombardo in the press conferences go white as a ghost 3 days later.
Yep.
He has lied to the FBI. They now own him. Okay? They own him. And so now he's got to say what he's told. And that's why Rouse is standing over his shoulder in every single press conference. Rouse is right there. Rouse is right over his shoulder. Now, why is that? Why did they bury it? Why would you do that? And that's what the evidence that I've been publishing since the shooting seems to indicate, that it was this particular group of people, because you have to have a means, a motive, and opportunity. And the FBI and the LVMPD said, no, we don't have any of that stuff. Yeah. So, and if you study my work, so one of the things you guys can do is you can look at the Johnny Hoover channel and you can search for terms like window. And if you go, there's also playlists. So there's like a whole series of playlists, like the window wasn't broken until such and such time of night or something like that. So one of the premises here is, if the window in 32-135, A, isn't broken when the cops come into the suite, and B, there's no muzzle flash coming from it, but we do see muzzle flash from the other room. So right. The little room, they find 8 rounds of .308. And they told us in something called, they had this preliminary report they called the FIT report, and it was their preliminary report. And they tell us in the preliminary report that those 8 rounds, 2 of them hit the tanks and 6 of them missed. But what that means is they're all accounted for. That means none of the shots from that window hit anybody according to the LVMPD. Nobody was shot from that window. You have to kind of put a stake in the ground right there and say, okay, we're going to claim that, seal that off, kind of lock that up. None of the shots from 32-134, there's only 8 shots, only 8 rounds are found on the floor. Only 8 shots, and we see many of them. From body cam footage, we see the muzzle flash and hear the report.
Yep.
And it's all in sync, right? So I document all that kind of stuff. Well, if we see,
I've watched a bunch of those. Your work on the window being busted is phenomenal.
Thank you. Well, that's kind of the pivotal thing. So it's like, well, wait a second. If the cops bust into the suite, so imagine it's you and me and some of these dopes. Okay, so imagine you and I are there. So first of all, we'd have our dogs with us. We train with our dogs all the time. Why do you leave the dogs in the car, you idiots? This is what you train for, and you left your dogs in the car. And by the way, these guys are making $250,000 a year, $225, $235 a year as dog handlers for LVMPD. Just put a pin in that for a minute. And they leave the dogs in the car, both of them, Newton and Bitsko. If it was you and me, and we go in the room, and we see this scene, and we see all these guns, and we see the guy lying on the floor, regardless of what Levi Hancock just did a second ago when the door was blown, because we hear a gunshot go off and we hear the guy say nice shot or headshot. I can't tell if it's nice shot or headshot, but I think it's nice shot. And
I thought it was nice shot.
All right, so if it's nice shot, now you know that these guys train to shoot here. This is the target.
center target.
This is the real target. Yeah, that center mass crap, that's if you're shooting a pistol at somebody, 25 feet away. When it's Levi Hancock with a rifle, with a silencer, and he's got some sort of an infrared laser on there as well. He's got the expensive one, the $8,000 lasers on his gun. So when he comes into the room and he breaches and he sees Paddock, and he sees, possibly, so here I'm speculating, Paddock's body in a chair. That's what he sees when he enters the room. Paddock's body is in a chair. And there's an AR tucked under his arm, pointing at the door. Uh-oh. Now, why do I speculate that? Because there's a chair missing in all the photographs that Jackie Heinrich got. There's a chair missing from the living room. You don't just pick up those chairs. Those are those big half-round wood crazy chairs with the upholstery. There's 2 of them at the table when you rent the room. They never show you the second chair. If I'm Levi Hancock, I'm putting one right here in Paddock. And that's how he's found. He's found with a self-imposed gunshot wound to the mouth. Now, Paddock has been dead for a long time. He's got a gunshot wound on his chest. He's been dead for a while. But they made sure that Levi Hancock put one in him as well. So as Levi Hancock breaches the room, you hear, nice shot. Now, they've got a problem. They just shot a dead guy, which isn't the first time Levi Hancock's had to fire his weapon, right? So Levi Hancock has fired his weapon before. This isn't the first time. So Levi comes in, shoots the guy in the face, right? That's his job. Guy's already dead. They got to lay him out. They lay him out. They got to get rid of the chair. The chair goes into the second bedroom because we never see footage of the second bedroom until months and months later, and it's the photographs from the next day. You never see the chair. That chair had to get rid of because they shot him and there's blood all over the damn thing. That doesn't fit the story. They lay him down. The window's not broken. This guy didn't do it. They're sitting there with a bunch of guns in the room, a dead guy in the room. The other room, the window's broken. The little room, the window's broken. But in the big room, the window's not broken. And they're looking at each other and going, how are all these calls coming in on the radio at the Bellagio, New York, Paris? And again, this is something Mindy did a really nice job of. She documented a lot of stuff that I never really got into, like the up and down the boulevard stuff. She documented all these different hotels and all these different places up and down the boulevard. I never did any of that stuff. So she did a beautiful job of that. She did a real nice job on like a bunch of things that I never really got into. So I learned stuff watching her video. But at the same time, some of the things that you see on like flight radar require some interpretation. And I probably spent more time studying that than anybody, even my friend Shepard Ambellis. So Shepard Ambellis and I kind of connected early on with this stuff with the helicopters. And what I ended up doing was something called baselining. I went back before October 1st and was looking at Sunday nights for 6 Sundays prior to look at what happens. What does this thing look like when there's not all right, exactly. When all hell isn't breaking loose, what does it look like? And it turns out that a lot of these anomalies, like the Southwest Airlines thing that Mindy in her video thinks is a helicopter because it comes in, it goes away, and it's shoom, shoom. Yes, that's weird, but it happens kinda all the time. It's not that bizarro. If you watch 6 other Sunday nights or 8 other Sunday nights, you're going to see stuff like that if you watch 4, 5, 6 hours worth of flight radar. So I was able to kind of figure out by the patterns of what was happening in the weeks prior, what's kind of normal here. Well, guess what else is kind of normal? That again, and I would say, Mindy probably got 91%, 93% of this stuff spot on accurate, but a couple little minor details. So like when the helicopters come back, and they turn their transponders off, they're not hovering at the hotel. They turn their transponders off there all the time, every night. When they come back, that's where they turn their transponders off so that pilots who are taking off in jets don't see aircraft coming straight at them at the end of the runway. So they turn their transponders off when they make the turn at Mandalay because they're low now. Now they're below 500 feet. They're like a 350 now. And they're coming in for their landing at Mandalay. So, but a lot of other people made the same mistake. People seem to think that the helicopters are turning off their transponders and hovering. Maverick are the heroes of the night. Maverick's not doing anything bad. Maverick are the heroes. They take off at 10:13 p.m. Shooting's not over. Shooting's going on. Now, I counted 7 aircraft. In Mindy's video, she says 8. So we're going to have to figure that out and see, is it 8 or 7? I thought it was 7. But an eyewitness that I've interviewed and did a documentary with, a guy we call the dog walking guy, he says, no, dude, there were like 13 aircraft because he saw them on the comeback around. Now, the thing is, they went on a totally different path. They didn't take the path they normally do. They went way out to the west, almost out by like Red Rock Canyon, right? So they went all the way out to the west side and then came back around. But 2 of the helicopters don't return. Okay. All right. So where do we get cut off? I forgot where I was.
You were talking about the helicopters taking the extra step to like Red Rock Canyon.
Yeah. All right. So Maverick departs at 10:13 p.m. Shooting's not over. I count 7. Mindy counts 8. They head north. They make the turn up at the Spire. What's that thing called? The Space Needle thing.
The Stratosphere.
Yeah, they make the turn at the Stratosphere. And instead of coming back down the boulevard like they normally do, they head way out west by Red Rock. And they make this big loop and they come back. Well, that's not normal. They don't do that normally. And we hear them being talked to by the guys in the tower. So I've got a bunch of videos called What Went Down on Runway 19R. And there's some activity that happens outside the Signature Air Services terminal. And it looks like a bunch of commandos. Looks like a bunch of guys with rifles running around outside Signature Air Services. Now, there's a Citation C-550 that lands at 10 o'clock right on the button that came in from Sacramento. I wonder, golly gee, who was on that plane? Because as it taxis up to Signature Flight Services, which is right next door to Maverick, by the way, it's almost like the 2 buildings touch each other, all hell breaks loose. The C-550 rolls up, and it's 10:05, and all hell breaks loose the second that C-550 rolls up to the gate at Signature Flight Services. All right, so strange things are happening down at the runway. The tower is not even aware of the shooting yet. They're asking the Maverick guys, what do you see down there? And they're like, well, looks like the concert's getting out. Now, where's Maverick going in the midst of all this? And how come 2 of the helicopters don't return? That's pretty weird. All right, so there's a couple little like adjustments that I'd love to make, to kind of go through some of this older footage. But again, I was really impressed with the job that Mindy did. The summation that she did is really impressive. I suffer from, I wouldn't say I suffer, but I've got Asperger's. And so for me, it's like I'm laser focused like a dog on stuff, so it's like I can't be distracted. It's weird. And so when I hear stuff like Brian Hodge and stuff, it was this Australian guy who didn't know what room he was staying in. I'm like, there's helicopters shooting at people. I don't give a damn about some Australian guy who doesn't know what room he's staying in. It's like, I don't even want to spend any time talking about that. There's helicopters here. We got eyewitnesses telling us there's helicopters from different angles. I don't care. I care less about a guy who doesn't know what room he's staying in. He's hiding in the bushes. Who cares? I don't care about that. So for me, I'm very myopic. I want to know, what are the helicopters doing? Where did they come from? Who's flying in them? What are they doing?
Well, and so I'm curious, John, to pick your brain on this specifically, because like the helicopters thing is so telling right? It's so telling, and the ballistics, right? That right. It's not hard to rope where these shots came from, right? Like
Right.
this is pretty basic forensics.
Mm-hmm.
So the question is, what were the helicopters doing? Now Couch proposed a theory when we were talking about this. He thinks that there was a pickup,
Mm-hmm.
right from the Four Seasons, which is on top of the Mandalay, like
Mm-hmm.
those upper levels. There was a pickup there of some of the Saudis.
No, no, they don't. So the guys in the helicopters, the whole idea of a helicopter is you're going to come and go. You're in and you're out. As soon as you have to start rappelling guys on and off of roofs, it's a whole nother level of pain in the neck.
Well, there's a helipad up there, isn't there?
No, there's not. No, there's not.
Oh, okay.
And there was a photographer up there, a guy named Jody Cachego. And I did a video that looks at his experience. He thinks the helicopters he's seeing are police helicopters. But we have the footage from the police helicopter looking at the roof, and Jody's not there. So that means Jody left. Jody Cachego left the roof before the police helicopters arrived. So the helicopters he thinks are the police are the perps. But he can't even imagine. So here's the thing, Dustin. This has never happened in American history. Commandos and helicopters have never fired upon American citizens on American soil. You had to go to Vietnam if you had to go to Afghanistan. If you want to get shot at by guys in helicopters, you got to be on one of these teams in Yemen. That's what, that's the deal. That doesn't happen on Frank Sinatra Boulevard.
Right.
So the cognitive dissonance is something called normalcy bias. Normalcy bias is something that most people have. So like 60% of people have normalcy bias, which is that can't possibly be what's happening.
Right. No, and listen, it's understandable in this instance, right? Like
it's understandable.
If you're on the roof of Mandalay Bay, there's a big shooting. You're not thinking, right? Whose first thought would be like, these are the bad guys, right? Run around in helicopters.
Well, but then there's people kind of like me who see through things in a weird way. Like, again, it's kind of like a weirdness. It's like this Asperger's-y thing. And there were people who were witnesses at the event who saw through this fog of war as well, who said they're shooting at us from helicopters. In the midst of all this, saw through the fog of war. Now, if people said that and we didn't have any photographic evidence of it, it might be weird, right? You'd be like, come on, really? Really? Come on. Is there any? But I've assembled such an unbelievable trove of evidence, hundreds of videos showing helicopters where they don't exist on flight radar, meaning every time I'm pointing out, they're not on the flight radar thing, meaning their transponders turned off. You're not allowed to do that in this. They're right across the street from Janet Airlines. You can't fly around here without a transponder on. Now, again, there's certain patterns that Sundance and Maverick followed night after night after night after night that I studied that most other people did. Now, the other thing to kind of state here is this has been my full-time job for 5 years. So one of the things my audience learned over the course of this past year that I shared with them was when this all started, I was working for Al-Walid bin Talal and Bill Gates. I was working at the Four Seasons in Thailand. All right, so I'm working for Al-Walid, and I'm accusing him of being one of the masterminds of this, along with Jamal Khashoggi, by the way. This is why Jamal Khashoggi was chopped up. So I've
got some Khashoggi stuff.
Yeah, so the interesting thing with Khashoggi is nobody seems to want to know, well, why would you chop a guy up like that? Why would you do that?
Well,
Nobody
it's because
wants
he
to.
was a journalist, John.
He wrote.
Washington Post. They just hate the Washington Post that much.
Well, if you continue to make the same grammatical errors week in, week out, I can understand it. I'd start cutting the guy's hands off too. But come on, man. Don't you know your prepositions from your. But here's the thing. If I'm MBS and I have a recording of Jamal Khashoggi planning my murder with my wife and kids and my brother Khalid bin Salman, and I got the recording. Now, he's not a sod. Jamal Khashoggi's not a sod. Very close family friend, not a sod. Where's who's got the video camera? Who's got the Sony? Set it up on a tripod. I want to send a message to the cousins. Here's what happens if you try this shit again. I'd have done the same thing, and so would you. If you had a recording of one of your closest family friends planning to kill you and your wife and your children in detail, and you've got the recording of it, and he's telling the other guys, here's what I want you to do. Here's how I want you to do it. Here's the sequence. Here's what I want them to see happen. Yeah, I'd have cut him up too. I'd have filmed it, and I'd have shown the rest of my cousins. Is there any more good ideas? Anybody else got a good idea? Next time, I'm going to serve one of you guys to the rest of you as lunch. You keep this up. This wasn't the first attempt on MBS's life, and it wasn't the last. They've been trying to kill this guy because they all think they should be king, not him.
Right.
Now, one thing that most people don't know, I don't think Mindy covered this. That night, October 1st, 2017, was Passover for Muslims. A holiday called Ashura. Different name, different time of year, same exact story. This is something that a lot of people don't know. Muslims and Jews and Christians all read and celebrate the Old Testament. So Muslims celebrate Exodus. The story of Exodus in the Jewish world, they have this dinner thing, Passover, right? Well, in the Muslim world, there's something that they call Ashura. It's the same thing. It's the same story. Moses, it's still Moses. It's the same story. Egypt and Exodus and all that, they're all on board with that. Everybody agrees. That's the common ground. That's probably how Jared Kushner got a deal done. Was we're all on board with the Old Testament, right? We're all on board with Moses. All right, can we move forward and kind of agree with that? Okay, I bet you that's how he did it, by the way. So Ashura was October 1st, 2017. Now, if you're going to tell the kids the story of Moses leaving Egypt, wouldn't it be cool to do it from the suite at the Four Seasons overlooking the Luxor and the Sphinx? Wouldn't that be cool for the kids to feel like they're looking out over the pyramids and there's the Sphinx and there's the pyramid and Moses, and that was the story you told? October 1st, 2017 was Ashura.
So John, so this was MBS wasn't in town though, right?
No, that's the whole point. MBS most likely was in town. We have witnesses that worked at the Four Seasons that tell us that there absolutely was a massive Middle Eastern entourage at the Four Seasons that week. Can't tell us, I saw MBS. They don't, but yes, we know that they were in town for Operation Red Flag and they booked the whole W Hotel, right? So we know that. So again, the way the story works, and this is something in like investigations, you've got two different ways you can determine, 2 + 2 = 4, and that's deductive reasoning, and that's where we've got all the evidence and this and this, and it all adds up, and it's kind of open and shut case. The other thing, if we can't just do simple deductive reasoning, we have to do inductive reasoning, and inductive reasoning is where they're hiding stuff from us. So if you know they're hiding stuff from us, and we're not going to get to see all the pieces of the puzzle no matter what, because the FBI is involved. So now we got to kind of piece it together. And what that means is you put together a hypothesis, you put together a whole bunch of evidence, which is what I've done on my YouTube channel, and then
you eliminate possibilities.
Right. And you keep looking, keep shining the rock, so to speak, and you put forward a thesis. And then the idea is someone else now has to come up with a similarly researched alternate hypothesis that's got a body of evidence that supports it, that's at least equal to this in order to be considered. And that's never material. We haven't seen somebody come forward and say, no. El Chapo has 14 helicopters right over the border. Right. Yeah. And this was an El Chapo mission. And he and Marin, right. And Marin was dating El Chapo's ex-wife. Like, nobody's come forward with a story like this to pin it on anybody. It's like, who the hell is showing up with helicopters in Vegas playing cat and mouse with the LVMPD, with their helicopters? It's not a good idea. Unless
it's a wild plot. Like that's part of the distance, right? The normalcy bias you're talking about.
Yes.
It's like the plot has to be something like, in order to make this move, you have to be moving for something big, right? You have to be somebody who has almost unlimited means, and you have to have a sense that you are above the law and above anything normal. 100%.
And that's why trying to pin this on, they were trying to get rid of bump stocks. Yeah. So what? A bunch of special forces guys got in helicopters and shot girls in the face so that we would get rid of bump stocks? No. Come on. No. There's not, I mean, you may not like the FBI, but there's nobody who goes through FBI training who is getting in a helicopter one day and shooting a 20-year-old girl in the face.
Yeah, it's not shooting down into a crowd.
It's not. I know you don't like the FBI, folks, but that's just not what happened here. Now, there are people who have demonstrated a lack of regard for Western values, Western lives, and willing to cut people's heads off just because it's, we haven't cut anybody's head off for a couple weeks now. Time to cut.
Propaganda video.
That's it. So for them, it's sport. And they just opened up. And what's interesting is when you look at Mindy's video and you look at stuff like the stuff at the Bellagio and the stuff at Planet Hollywood and the stuff happening up and down the strip, well, what would explain that? A bunch of guys hanging out of a helicopter, flying up and down the strip, shooting wherever. You know how we can get from Mandalay to Bellagio in 30 seconds.
Right.
And back.
This gets to what I've come to is that there had to have been multiple targets, right? So it wasn't just that they wanted to take MBS out, right? No. Or whoever it was, right? There had to be other people in the inner circle, other power play, right? They were going for an elimination of an entire oppositional clique.
That's where the C-550 comes in, because there's activity on the runway. There's shooters, and you hear it from the tower. So there's a video I did. In fact, if you're looking at the top of my thing, one of the top videos is called Las Vegas Shooting, What Went Down on Runway 19R, Part 1. And that and Part 2 have the communications from the tower. And the tower says, we've got shooters on the runway. We've got shoot. Now, wait a second. If Paddock is the lone gunman and he's dead on the floor, how the hell you guys have shooters on the runway? Who's that? So that's what you're talking about. So yes, I believe MBS and family were up in the suite at the Four Seasons. Now keep in mind, the Four Seasons is only 3 floors up from Paddock's suite. You just go 3 floors up, and it's no longer Mandalay Bay. Now it's the Four Seasons. Different carpet, different wallpaper, different furnishings. Different furnishings, all this stuff. So 3 floors up, whole thing changes to the Four Seasons. MBS's suite is right up there. Now that belongs to Al-Walid bin Talal. Al-Walid bin Talal has been the richest guy in Saudi Arabia, biggest single shareholder in Citibank, biggest single shareholder in Twitter. Biggest single shareholder in Twitter. Wait a second. Didn't Gina Haspel go to Saudi Arabia to sit down with the king to talk about Twitter? That's weird. Gina Haspel, head of the CIA at the time, goes to Saudi Arabia to sit down with the king of Saudi Arabia, not MBS, the king, to talk about Twitter. Ali bin Talal owns 45% of the Four Seasons at the time. I'm publishing these videos from the Four Seasons in Thailand on the property. My computer, the one I'm, basically the one right before this one, is an iMac, and I have that computer set up on the property at the Four Seasons. And
You're a madman.
And I'm publishing these videos from their IP addresses, accusing him of being one of the masterminds of this thing. And then November 5th, we have the Night of the Long Sword. And this was when the whole thing came together. In fact, Shepard Ambellis had been on Alex Jones on October 28th or 29th, I believe. And somebody calls in, this guy Zach, and says there was a group on the ground in Vegas that's sort of like the Blackwater of Saudi Arabia. And these guys were in town. Now, why would they be in town? To guard the crown prince. Okay? So this is October 27th, 28th. So I start looking into the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Would there be a motive? Do they have the means? Is there any Saudi Arabian helicopters nearby? Well, lo and behold, there's a whole bunch of them sitting on the tarmac in Mesa, Arizona, 275 miles away. And there's a whole bunch of them sitting right there. Saudi Arabia. Trainers. That's like, oh, you got to be kidding me. So we're training Saudi Arabian pilots in Mesa, Arizona, 268 miles as the crow flies from Vegas, on how to fly Blackhawks and Apaches and Little Birds. And on a Sunday night, they're gone. Who's even asking questions? They come and go constantly. They're pilots. They fly this stuff. It's at Boeing.
Right.
They're at Boeing's. Boeing's got a facility, I guess, in Mesa that's got helicopter stuff, and they're taking lessons. And the Army is charging for this. So the Army's like in the sales business. It's like we help sell the helicopters, and then we charge, Qatar $400 million to teach you how to fly the helicopters the way we fly them, because, we're really good at this stuff. So we teach everybody how to do it, but that's Army money. They're like running a racket over here, selling helicopters, and they teach them in the USA.
Right, we're saying it with Ukraine, with the Patriot missiles in Kansas.
Do you remember Pensacola? Remember what happened in Pensacola? We had the shooting in Pensacola.
Yeah.
Right? So we're training, basically, Al-Qaeda in America. We're training, these are old school Saudis that want to get rid of this newfangled prince that wants to let girls drive in movie theaters. No, we got to go back to Sharia law. He needs to be killed. Those guys are the guys that got in those helicopters that night and said, this is for the benefit of Saudi Arabia. We need the old regime, the old guard, the old guys need to run the thing, not this 32-year-old. Next thing we know, the girls are going to be running around in bikinis. And then they're going to be talking about, getting Brazilians. And, we can't have any of that stuff. So that's kind of what seems to have happened based on the evidence, because nobody else seems to have 5 or 6 helicopters within 250 miles of Vegas, and a motive that they published. So the motive seems to have been published in The Guardian.
Well, before you go to the motive, let's get to, because you threw it out there. We definitely should expound on like the night of the long sword.
Yeah,
because I think that pull. I really think that's the pull together.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
That ties, like, because for every action there's a reaction.
That's it.
Reaction to this gives us a lot of insight as to what happened.
So here's the interesting thing: if you ask the CIA, excuse me, the Brookings Institute. If you ask the Brookings Institute what happened, Bruce Riedel, former CIA, MBS is crazy. MBS is a lunatic. MBS is off the reservation. Can't be trusted. I feel like I'm watching Syriana. It's like, whoa, 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 whoa. What are you talking about? If you take the story I'm telling here and you piece this together, and Ali bin Talal Jamal Khashoggi, Maiteb bin Abdullah, Mohammed bin Nayef, Mansour bin Mukran, I mean, these are all billionaires. All these guys have got a yacht. Every one of them's got a yacht. I'm not talking about a boat. I'm talking yacht with a staff. These are all billionaires. When they decide that the 32-year-old crown prince was a bad decision made by his 84-year-old dad, these guys are ruthless, man. They will just kill each other. They just don't care. They've done it before. So they try
to get big enough.
So that's the motive. And they publish an article in The Guardian in 2015 saying they've been meeting about it and talking about it, and the elders aren't happy, and Al-Walid thinks he should be the king, and this one thinks he should be the king, but they all agree it shouldn't be this one. It shouldn't be the 32-year-old. No. It's either him or him or him or him, but definitely not him. That we all agree on. Let's get rid of him, and then we'll figure it out. And they published this in The Guardian in 2015. And, even the CIA has said 80% of the stuff we do is just publicly available information. We just put it together in a way that makes some sense. And that's kind of what I did. So I pulled that and I'm like, these guys just published a motive. They just published a motive. Well, do they have the means? Well, they got helicopters 250 miles away from here. And there's this airport in this town called Kingman that you could refuel, and they got all kinds of hangars there. It's like a whole lot bigger than you might think in Kingman. Certainly could come in there, refuel, and back out of there.
Shot from Kingman.
It's nothing. Yeah, quick. But they're only there. The shooting begins at 10:04, a couple seconds before 10:05. It ends at 10:17. It goes on for 12 minutes. That's it. 12 or 13 minutes, and it's over, and they're gone. Just as the LVMPD helicopter arrives, these guys, they're gone, and they're out of there. But there's eyewitnesses. There's eyewitnesses from Las Vegas Boulevard, guys that were coming out of the Sharks game, people that went to see that medieval jousting thing had just came out of that.
That's the Excalibur.
Yeah, we got the dog walking guy that was about 2 miles south and west of the venue, kind of getting a big broad view of it. And he doesn't even know the shooting is happening because he's far enough away, he doesn't hear the gunfire. But he's looking at these helicopters flying around Mandalay Bay, and he's like, why is there fire coming out of these helicopters? And he goes home and turns on the television, and nobody mentions the helicopters. And when he finally finds my stuff, he's like overwhelmed. And we finally end up connecting, I guess, after 3 years after the shooting. We end up connecting. And that's the dog walking guy. And you guys can find that video on the Johnny Hoover channel as well. But, when you start piecing it all together, you have to look at what's the most egregious piece of evidence. And the most egregious piece of evidence is there's helicopters flying around with dots of light, and they're not on flight radar. So is HBO making a film? Was this when they were filming Bourne Identity? We need some explanation. No, it's none of that. And
no, they don't touch it at all. No, that gets to your inductive reasoning, right?
Correct.
Which is, and we learned to do this across so many different conspiracies, right? Mm-hmm. The things that they go most out of the way to hide from people, right? You have to give extra importance to those nuggets.
Correct. And what we heard, so one of the guests that came on the show was Zach Voorhees. And Zach Voorhees, for those of you who are watching, are familiar with Zach. Zach was the guy that was working at Google, working at YouTube Google, when there was a shooting. And there was some sort of shooting that took place. He was there, witnessed that. And he then ends up coming forward with a whole bunch of documents saying Google's like blacklisting these search terms and stuff. And it's really getting kind of out of hand. And he comes out and publishes all this stuff. Well, he came on the show, and what he shared with us was the day it happened. He said it was like night and day. He said all of a sudden, Susan loses her mind, and it's the Monday after the Vegas shooting. Now, what we do is we put the straw man into the puzzle. And we say, all right, so hypothetically, what if? What if the shooters really were in helicopters? What if they really were Saudi commandos trying to kill MBS up at the Four Seasons? Would that explain pretty much everything we've seen and heard? And if not, what does it not? Okay, we're going to get cut off again in 10 minutes, so we'll reconnect again just like we just did. All right, so you put that in place as a straw man, and you say, all right, does that hold up? Does it hold water? All right, we got a bunch of helicopters.
What are the fallacies?
Right, and so let's break it down. So we got a bunch of helicopters sitting there in Mesa. We know that they're training Saudis over there. The Saudis have already said they hate MBS and don't think he should be the guy. We know there's a Four Seasons up there. We don't see any footage from the Four Seasons. We don't see any gunfire coming from the room. The window's not broken.
Where do they say MBS was at the time?
Nobody has an alibi for him. There's no photo of him anywhere else in the world. There is no alibi. There's no documentation of him being anywhere else. We do know Khalid bin Salman was in Vegas at Nellis for Red Flag because he was the head of a certain military branch in Saudi. We don't know that he was there that day, but we know he was there, earlier that week. They had the W Hotel booked up for the whole month, all that kind of stuff. So the indications are that it was most likely them. And again, you put this in place and you say, well, does that work? Does that fit? And if it kind of fits, it's like, well, how is this not what happened? Then what did happen?
Roll with it until somebody disappeared.
Right. So was it El Chapo? I mean, who's got 5 or 6 helicopters? And again, when you talk to the dog walking guy, what he says when they came back around the Maverick crew, he said there was like 13 aircraft. He said there wasn't 7, 8 aircraft. He said there was like 13 of them. And I was like, really? And he said, absolutely. He said, I couldn't believe it. He's like, I'm sitting there one. And he said, so I started counting them. So his testimony is that there was even more than what we're seeing on flight radar. And so now you start thinking, so wait a second, if MBS is up in the Four Seasons, shootout occurs, something happens, and they want to get him the hell out of there. They escape out of the building, and they go to Maverick. Turns out all the pilots at Maverick are former military. They're all former military.
Makes sense.
Okay, and the Rockna.
So they use Maverick to evacuate.
And Maverick was deputized prior to the event because the Rockna family, Ginny Rockna, Greg's a former pilot, a former military pilot, and he owns 50 aircraft. How does the CIA not go to him one day and say, hey, listen, if we're ever in a jam, we good, right? And he's going to go, of course, yeah. I'm an American patriot. I'm former military. Of course, you guys need help. And I got birds sitting here on the tarmac. Yeah, of course.
Right,
whatever. Yeah. What do you need? So, all of a sudden, one day, we've got the crown prince and his entourage in an assassination attempt. They run them over to Maverick, and by 10:13, they're airborne. The shooting hasn't even stopped. MBS is on those helicopters. The helicopters flying over the venue. That's the exfiltration. 2 of them don't return to Maverick. Where did they go? Well, they turned off their transponders, so we don't get to see where the safe house is.
Right.
They went south to a safe house. And you know the area. Once you go south of McCarran, you go southwest of McCarran. God, there's nothing but warehouses out there. I mean, you could park those helicopters. And again, this is taking place at 10:30 at night on a Sunday.
Yeah.
You come
And
in,
even
land,
further south, like
yeah,
right, you get into Boulder City,
exactly.
right,
I mean,
and the desert. There's
you're
plenty.
gone. You're gone.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
you're in
so
the wind.
and the LVMPD helicopter comes in and has to go to the venue, has to go to Mandalay, has to fly over the concerts. Fly, it can't go chasing helicopters. This isn't, this isn't Mission Impossible. We're not going to have an air battle.
Right,
These guys
right,
are
and
gone.
they don't even that they probably even at that point aren't right. Like most people, right, probably aren't even considering the possibility at that point.
And the transponders aren't on. So unless the police helicopters using the FLIR to look forward and seize the aircraft, I don't know that they're even going to show up on their console if the ADSB thing isn't turned on. So I don't know. We got to ask some pilots what the deal is. But if you look at the number one most highly viewed video on my channel, which is the most damning body cam footage of all, it shows a picture of a gun line there. There's a guy who commented on that video, and that comment has so many sub comments, and it's been viewed so many times. And he's a former military pilot, and he says, "Yeah, these are commandos shooting from helicopters." And when you have guys with these kind of credentials watching these videos and sharing their professional observations and confirming it and saying, "Yeah, guys, come on, what you're seeing here, these aren't navigation lights. This is muzzle flash. This is muzzle flash." If it was navigation lights, you know what is navigation lights is the Mike Tokes footage. Mike Tokes put out a video showing helicopters. And those are the police. And you can tell because the strobe has the same pattern.
Right, it's consistent.
Absolutely. It's absolutely the same pattern and consistent like a watch. When you see these guys shooting from between the buildings, yes, it's totally organic. Bing, 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 bing. Yeah, it's all over the place.
All right, so we talked about the helicopters. I want to expound a bit because I also there wasn't just people. There were guys in the there were other perch points that were being fired from. Right,
so potentially, yeah,
not come from the helicopters.
Correct. So for example, the shots at the tanks. So when I was on the ground there, I went to visit there with my broadcast partner. I do a show called Crowdsource the Truth on Fridays. And we went to the venue twice now. And when we went over to the tanks, you get a real sense of the range. Now, it's about 770 yards from the window. It's a downward shot. And when you see the incendiary mark on the tank, it's clear these were incendiary rounds. Now, there's a guy named Haig that was arrested, served time and whatever for making incendiary rounds and selling them to Stephen Paddock. And that was sort of an interesting twist because of where he worked. Where did Douglas Haig work? He worked at Boeing in Mesa, Arizona. Well, that gave the FBI a really good reason to be poking around in Boeing in Mesa, Arizona, because the guy who made the bullets works there. That's why we're here. There's a white guy who made the bullets who works here at Boeing Helicopter in Mesa, Arizona. That's why we're here. We're checking him out. We're not really looking into what Saudis were flying the little birds and the stealth. No, we're not looking at that. That's not what. No, we're not looking into any of that stuff. We're here to find the guy who made the bullets.
To what tie-in that is.
Now, I know that you shoot. I don't know if you shoot a 308. Do you shoot? All right, 308 at 770 yards, trying to go through milled steel, a milled steel fuel tank. Dude, you talk about armor plate. I mean, that stuff is this thick.
Right.
Steel. 308 at 770 yards. I'm like, what are you kidding? Give me a Barrett. Give me a 50 cal. Give me a 50 cal with we might get through it. We might get through it. That's what it was. Right. That was a 50 cal. That's not a 308. A 308 at 770 yards? Get the hell out of here. Come on.
Right. Nonsense.
No way. There's not enough energy, even with an incendiary tip. They use something called zirconium tip. Doesn't matter. 308 doesn't have enough oomph at that distance. Now, a 50 cal Barrett fired from the parking lot we might make a hole in that thing. Yeah,
at least you'd have a chance.
That's what I'm saying. So the shots at the tank were most likely taken from that dirt parking lot just east of the venue, from a guy in a Barrett in a pickup truck. And again, Mindy documents a couple of the pickup trucks, the dually. There were a couple of pickup trucks that kind of made a scene trying to get out of there. Yep. What's the likelihood one of these guys had a 50 cal Barrett and was one of the perps, right?
Extremely possible.
That's it. Now the rest of the stuff that's going on up and down, I mean, all you need are a couple guys with Glocks under their jackets and, pop, and that's it. And put it away, and that's it. Nobody even knows what the hell's going on. It's that easy, and you know it. You know it. But
well, to create the panic. Okay, so right, we have these different things down the strip that are happening. So right, we have the venue, and I want to talk about like why. The shooting is just a distraction to allow them to get in and out to try to make a hit or multiple hits on other people, right?
A little bit more than that. If so, the whole thing was organized, but one of the guys might have been Abdullah, and he used to run like the Saudi CIA. And the other head of this guy, thing, was the head of the Saudi Arabian National Guard, the SANG. And these are the guys who are responsible for protecting the prince and the king. So they know the exfiltration protocols. If you're the former head of the SANG and the former head of the GIP, it's called the General Intelligence Presidency, it's the CIA over there. If you're the head of that, you know exactly what the exfiltration protocols are. You know what trips it. So now if you're planning to kill your cousin, would you tell the guys, all right, so here's what we're going to do. We need a disaster outside, right? Some gasoline, blow some shit up, kill a bunch of people. If the shit doesn't blow up, kill some more people. But I need a disaster. If I've got a disaster outside and engines and fire engines and sirens and people screaming and and all that, we got to go. We got to go, sir. We got to go. We got to go. That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to trip the exfiltration protocol, get them into a caravan of vehicles, and gun them down. That's the plan. Now, there's also a hit team in the hotel. That's what Paddock's suite is for. So this is like, everybody misses this except kind of Laura Loomer. Laura, and I made a video about that you can also see on Johnny Hoover channel that has, 36,000 views. It's called Laura Loomer, the Honey Pot, and the Three Women Sleeping with Paddock. So Laura, all right, so Laura breaks a story that there's 3 women registered to the room. I find out their names. So I take her lead and I go off of that. Now, Laura and I know each other. We were talking when I was in Thailand. We were talking privately, like on Skype and stuff like that. So we kind of knew each other. So I made this video to kind of promote what she did because I thought it was a cool break, and she was on Alex Jones and all that stuff. So I made a video kind of promote her a little bit. And I found out the names of the girls. So I'm watching footage. She's watching footage. Mindy's watching footage. I find out the names of the girls. Joanne, Katie, and Laura, actually, are the names of the 3 women. Now, here's the thing. People say, well, maybe they're prostitutes. You have to check in. Yeah, you got to show an ID to get a key. Right. Prostitutes aren't doing that. That's not how it works, guys.
Listen, you're not picking up the prostitute and dropping her name on your room.
No, and she doesn't get a room key. Yeah, that's not how it works, guys. He knew these girls. And if he's registered to the room with 3 other women, and he's got a suite and a side room with 2 beds, well, that kind of changes things, doesn't it? Doesn't that change the story a little bit? So again, Mindy picks up on this piece. She reports on this in her video, which is spot on. It's like, how do you miss this part? How do you miss the part that he's got 3 women there? Now, what Mindy didn't do was connect the dots here. So let me help out. There's a part of the story where Hispanic-looking women in the crowd start telling everybody that they're going to die.
Remember this?
Mm-hmm. You sure they were Hispanic? Are you sure they were Hispanic?
Arab Hispanic.
You sure?
Very similar.
Sure they were Hispanic? You absolutely positive. You bet your life on it that they were Hispanic? Might it have been Katie and Laura and Joanne that were down at the venue going, you guys are all going to die. You're all going to die. That was Katie. That was Laura and Joanne that were down in the concert venue telling people they were going to die. It was the girls who were checked into the room. All right, so here's what happens. Stephen Paddock was targeted and honeypotted. Now, you and I both know, but most people don't know, that if you and I decide, you know what, next week, let's go out to the desert and let's go shooting, okay? You bring a couple of your guns, I'll bring a couple of my guns, okay? Now, you may see one of my guns and go, dude, that is sick. That is sick. How much you want for that? I got to get $5,000 for it. It's got a $3,000 scope on it, and it's a special trigger. I can sell the gun to you for $5,000. It's perfectly legal. Perfectly legal. Okay, yep, as long as you're not a felon, right? You haven't been convicted yet, right? So you're not a felon. So it's perfectly legal. So if Stephen Paddock had an invitation, so let's say the girl said to him, hey, Stephen, listen, we got a bunch of rich friends. They all drive Ferraris and Lamborghinis and McLarens, and they tend to carry 20 or 30 grand in their pocket at any time in cash. They want to know, can you take them shooting in the desert? And if they wanted to buy a couple guns, 5 or 10 grand a piece, could we do something like that? Oh, yeah, hell yeah. Why not?
Sounds like a fun afternoon.
Sounds like a fun way, right? So let's get some tannerite. How many guys? 4 or 5 guys? All right, I'll bring the minivan. He parks the minivan in the garage. What the fuck is he doing with a minivan? He thinks he's taking a whole bunch of people out to the desert shooting. So he's got tannerite, he's got a bunch of guns, and these guys are willing to pay $5,000, $10,000 a gun. These guys drive Ferraris and they race Arabian horses, and these guys are rollers. To them, 20 grand for a rifle, if it's got a Neotech on it, it's worth it. To them, that's fine. That's the setup. He thinks he's about to walk away with $250,000 to $500,000 selling guns after taking these guys shooting out in the desert next day. But they're going to come up to the room for a quick party, have a quick drink, say hello, and then we're going to go out to the desert tomorrow. They come in. Hey, Steven, bang, bang, you're dead. Thanks for bringing all the guns and ammo. This is awesome. This is exactly what we need to go kill MBS upstairs. Good thing you're dead. Stay right there. Let's see, guys, what do we got here? We got AR-15s. Are there any AK-47s found in the room? No. So why are there AK-47 magazines in the room?
Okay, all right. So
there's AK-47 magazines in the room, but there's no AK-47s in the room. Well, that's weird. Where did they go? Upstairs? Is that the preferred weapon of the SAW? Suitcase.
Okay, so curious though. So like one of the theories on Paddock, right? Mm-hmm. Now let's run with your theory for a sec, right? On Paddock being the patsy and wanting to make money taking people out. You also would likely draw the attention of right, if you had done this, or especially if you'd done it several times, you would likely have drawn the attention certain 3-letter agencies that would want to monitor your behavior and who you were selling to, right?
Maybe, possibly. There's nothing illegal about it.
No, I'm not saying there's anything illegal. However, right, if you're somebody who's made a bunch of money, right? Because the Paddock money thing has never made. I've been to Mesquite, right? Right. Actually, that's where I got raided.
Right. But that's what makes him the perfect patsy. This is what makes him the perfect patsy. He may have been, right? So we know
he was under surveillance, though.
Right? And we know
he was under surveillance,
and
and not from the bad guys. From
Mary Lou Danley. Well, Mary Lou Danley's resume on LinkedIn says she used to work for the FBI. So the point is, he wasn't in any helicopters. He's not shooting anybody. He's dead. No. He's dead on the floor. So he brought all the guns, he brought all the ammo, and he's the first to die. That's the scenario. He's the first to die. So now he's dead on the floor. And in Mindy's video, she talks about an eyewitness who hears a gunshot like at 3:45 in the afternoon.
Yeah.
Is that when they killed Paddock? Right. So now he's lying there, bleeding all over the place. Right. That's fine. You know what? This explains it. You know how everybody's saying, why are there two different levels of blood? There's like the old blood and then the new blood.
Wow.
They shoot him. They shoot him at 3:45. Right before they head upstairs to the Four Seasons, they prop him up in the chair, stick the AR under his arm, and he's sitting in the chair with an AR pointing towards the front door so that Levi has to shoot him. Levi has to shoot him. You got a dead guy in a chair with a gun under his arm,
but you don't know
pointing
he's dead when you're
and it's dark in there, and he just blew the door open. He's absolutely going to shoot him. Right? Absolutely going to shoot him. And he's going to shoot him right here. That's his target. And they call that the suicide, right?
Yeah.
But he's got a gunshot wound here. This is where the party guys said hello. The party guys came in and said, "Hi, Stephen." Bang, you're dead. And he's bleeding all over the carpet. After Levi shoots him in the chair, knocks him over, makes a whole mess over there, well, now they've got to move the body. They put it back where the bloodstain is. Now we got a second layer of blood because they just moved the body. And now more blood is gushing out of the head on top of the old stain. The cops moved the body, put it in they had to. The perps moved the body from the original point where he bled all over the floor, put him in a chair. Levi Hancock comes in, shoots him. Now they're like, oh, God, shot a freaking dead guy. They knew he was dead already. He's got a gunshot wound here.
Right. His body's already cold.
So that's why
3:45 to what time do they enter Paddock's room roughly?
11:20. Yeah. So he's
almost
8 hours. Right. So he's white as a ghost, rigor mortis.
Once you have a time to assess.
Exactly. So, and that's why one of the guys says, this guy's been dead for a minute. This guy's white and rigor mortis, cold as, And
lips are purple.
Right. But you don't see any of the footage prior to this. So I think they had to get rid of the chair that he was propped up in. Now they got to put the body back on top of the bloodstain. And the mistake they made is they put his leg, under the rifle. And that was like a sign to everybody, well, that's not natural. How the hell do you fall down underneath a rifle? You can't do that. So people understood that was bizarre. So there was a lot of manipulating of evidence by the LVMPD. And this is where prosecuting,
So wait, John, I want to expound on that. What do you think the motivation? So why is, because I want to talk about the cover up.
Yeah.
Right. Because I think that's the next part of this, that we've established kind of the story and the reality with the helicopters and the motivation. Excellent. Mm-hmm. But the next part is the cover up and the motivations behind the cover up. But what I'm curious is in the room with Paddock, right?
Mm-hmm.
The cover up, they have to move that evidence before there's really time for an organized cover up, like from above, right? So What's the motivation for the police at that point to start moving evidence around?
So it's super simple. As Levi Hancock and Newton and Bitsko are standing there, they're realizing this isn't the shooter.
Right, there's only 8 rounds on the ground.
There's only 8 rounds in the other room. And I got a dead guy here. There's a bunch of guns. But how could he have shot anybody if the window's not broken? So if the window's not broken, he's just a dead guy on the floor with a bunch of guns. So now they're all going, oh shit, we just got punked. This isn't the guy. What are we going to do? We're going to go on television and say we thought we had the guy, we blew in the door, and we found the dead guy, but it's not the guy. And so we want everybody to shelter in place because we don't know where the guy is that killed this guy because this guy's dead and been dead for. That ain't Vegas, baby. Yeah, in Vegas, the story needs to be, yeah, we got the guy. We want to get you back to the tables right away, ladies and gentlemen.
One lone guy, just one psych. No,
And
nothing
we got
to
him.
worry about.
Get back to those tables. Quick, quick, quick. Hurry up. Back to the table. Hurry up.
See, I get that part of the cover up, right? But the immediate, I just don't see how.
You've got to
right. How their concern isn't immediately, oh shit, we don't have the guy. It means we have to go find the guy. So like, where does that first order? Is it Lombardo? Like so early on?
So good question. So this is where one of the videos that I made is features this dialogue between these SWAT guys that are outside saying, "Oh, we have the broken window." And the title of the video, it's the 12th most popular video on my channel. It's called Major Break, LVMPD Lieutenant. Okay, we have the broken window. And these are guys outside the building trying to figure out, well, wait a second. The window we're seeing that's broken is not the window. It doesn't line up. And when you listen to this dialogue, they're all confused. It's like the guys who are in the room are saying, no, that's not us. We're not, with the curtains closed. The guys outside are saying, is that you guys moving in the room behind the broken thing? And the guys inside are going, no, the curtain's closed. You wouldn't see us moving. There was another room with a broken window up at the Four Seasons. They didn't want Bill Gates and all we'd been told drawn into this. So the cover-up begins that night because there's action at the Four Seasons. That's when the cover-up begins. Is whoa. We had a visiting dignitary. Now, visiting dignitaries are guarded by the State Department, not the FBI. So the State Department would be guarding MBS. They know what's happening. They know exactly what's happening. Lombardo and the goofballs down in 32-135 have no idea this is a helicopter attack. They have no clue. None whatsoever.
That I agree with. Like that night,
they have no idea.
So fucking clueless.
No idea. They have no idea it's a helicopter attack. The reason Lombardo turns white as a ghost 2-3 days later, I think it's the Wednesday press conference where he breaks down and it looks like he's going to cry. It's because Rouse just explained to him what really happened and that he is guilty of lying to the FBI. And the FBI now knows that they have forged evidence, obstructed justice, and starts rattling off all the charges that Lombardo is guilty of. Rouse now owns Lombardo. And the reason the FBI needs to cover it up is because MBS says to Trump, I'm going to catch these guys. And we're going to do this.
I want to handle this.
And we're going to do this my way. We're going to do this my way. We're going to do this the old-fashioned way.
No, well, and listen, the motivation for the casino, right? The city of Las Vegas, right? Which anyone who's lived there can tell you like how it operates.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They know it's bad for allowing this to play out as a foreign terrorist attack. Right? Is vastly different than a lone gunman as far as impact on traffic to the strip, right?
Exactly.
So we can look at the motivation from like the city, Sisolak's punk ass, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, mm-hmm. God, how did we end up with Sisolak versus Lombardo? By the way, it's
almost like a South Park episode. It reminds me of the South Park episode with Obama and yeah. Well, the other one where they steal the diamond. Yeah, it's like we're in on this together. So, well, so again, again, Mindy in her video features this GoFundMe thing that Sisolak did. So he starts this GoFundMe, raises $13 million or whatever it was.
Oh, she's on the warpath.
Yeah. So again, I'm a huge fan of what she's doing. There's just a couple minor, little tiny adjustments, but the stuff is complicated. And again, this is one of these things where they're intentionally obscuring the story, right? There's the fact that you've never heard of my work. I've been at this for 5 years, published hundreds of videos on it, have millions of views across these videos. Millions, 4 million, 5 million views.
I've passionately been looking into this stuff for years.
And I have
right?
no
I know
idea.
Laura, I know Mindy, right? I know local journalists when I'm living on the ground who end up, getting rapid advancing cancer and die when they're hunting down big scoops, right? In relation, I know families who will not talk at all because they've seen what happened to people around them, right? All of these things. And yet, right, here you are publishing literally you have like one of probably the catalog of like compiled evidence. And yet it takes some of your fans, right, who listen to both our shows, right, who know us both, to say, wait, how do you not have John Cullen on the Las Vegas shooting space?
Yeah. And
goes to show the and the cover up part of this. And this is where I don't know if you're being too easy on Lombardo here. And maybe it's me because he roughed me up. I was in a big battle with Sheldon Adelson over some stuff back in the day. Team Lombardo roughed me up a little bit a couple times.
I understand.
Right. So I really hate the guy.
Yeah.
But I think that they enlist Lombardo for the cover up early on. I think the reason he turns white is that he's just not prepared to answer the question. He knows, right? And he also knows he's not allowed to go anywhere near it.
Actually, I think it's worse than that. I think, again, he was confident. He's, we got our guy, we got the lone gunman. It's that night. It's 1:30 in the morning. One guy, that's it. End the story. 2 days later, he's choking up in the press conference. He's losing his emotional cool. He has been told something that just shook his world. Now, I don't think any of the police officers has any clue that this was an aerial attack. And again, we see so much footage. We really get to hear these guys. This officer, Brady Cook, a bunch of videos here about Brady Cook getting shot. He gets shot from above, comes down through here into his ribcage. And it certainly appears that he was shot from a helicopter. So, but he's not even aware of it. These guys don't know where the shots are coming from. They think they're coming from the Luxor. Then you've got people saying the shots are coming from Hooters. Well, I find the footage that shows a helicopter over Hooters. And you see muzzle flash. It's like, damn it. Every time we've got an eyewitness saying, well, here's what I experienced, I'm finding the footage that backs up, well, there's another helicopter. So that kind of explains what I was saying earlier, where Mindy in her video is showing up and down the strip. There's all these 911 calls. That's the other thing. She did an amazing job. She went through these 911 calls. Like, again, I never did all that stuff. So I did a couple of them that mentioned helicopters, which is confirmation bias, which I know I use, right? So I'm using that to make sure, are there 911 calls that mention helicopters at all? Or am I dreaming over here, right? So when you get them, you're like, okay, I need to confirm this. So that was my focus, looking at 911 stuff. But Mindy documents up and down the strip. This is happening. All these calls coming in from this hotel, that hotel. Well, now imagine that the shooters are in the helicopters. Take a shot at Planet Hollywood. I'll take a shot over here at the Hard Rock. I'll take a shot over there at the Bellagio. It's not a big deal.
Right.
It's like...
I still think, though, I do think that there were teams on the ground.
There were.
Members of the entourage.
There were. And, so how do we know that? So there's a video.
Room at the Bellagio.
Well, so there's that, and there's a video that I did where you'd have to probably search the channel, but it talks about how people were shot right in the forehead, and you'd have to search for forehead or something like that to find the video. But what it shows, the guys are walking around the venue, about midnight, 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning. The cops are walking around, EMT guys are walking around, and they're looking at the deceased. The name of the video is Right in the Forehead, Yeah, That's Dead Center. That's the name of the video. And what we see in this video is one after the other, right here. That's not a bump stock. Yeah, that's not a helicopter. It's not a bump stock. So those people were absolutely, come on. That's not.
By the way, bump stock is so ridiculous.
It's crap.
Yeah,
it's crap. So the window's not broken.
Gun owners it went away. By the way,
but again, it's the kind of thing where if you were taking a bunch of guys you didn't know out to the desert, and you don't have machine guns, and you want to, pretend to be Dan Bilzerian, so you throw bump stocks on it for $99.
We're gonna shoot some drones down.
That's it. A bunch of bottles of soda, Orange Crush, and it blows up all over the place, and that's it. This is for guys who don't shoot. It's a bunch of fun, but that's not how you get that. You don't get that again and again and again with a bump stock at a window at night shooting down. No.
And by the way, you really don't get that shooting from a helicopter either.
That's what I'm saying. That's why
still
exactly
very unstable platform.
There's no way. Right. That's exactly right. So that's what I'm saying. That is the evidence that there were shooters on the ground. To me, the evidence is we've got a preponderance of people in the venue that were shot right in the middle of the forehead. Those shots most likely did not come from the helicopters. Now, also in Mindy's video, she showcases some of the work that I did on the autopsies. So I was the one who got the autopsies. I got them from somebody at Fox News. Somebody at Fox News sent them to me and said, "Shh, you can probably do more with these than we can right now." And I am the one who drew all these red lines in the autopsy diagrams because they didn't provide any. So this was interesting. It's like, wait a second, this is the worst shooting in American history, and you guys aren't doing the lines? Why are you not doing the lines? Why are you not showing us where the trajectories were? Why don't you want to show us that? So, but they describe it. So it says the bullet enters the vertex of the skull, 3/4 of an inch from the right of the vertex, travels straight down. And I'm finding example after example of this, of these autopsy reports that in words are describing shots that are coming down the vertex.
Right. So you can build the lines out.
Yeah. And that's what I did. So Mindy obviously watched those videos and incorporated some of that into her work. So when you look at, again, this is what I mean. It's a preponderance of evidence. You need to have all this evidence to say, they were in the helicopters, man. Come on. We got eyewitnesses. We got these reports here. We got video. There's no accounting for it. The
official story is so effing ridiculous to be ruled out on literally 5 minutes of investigation. You can rule out the official story that it's Paddock alone in his room,
1,000 rounds. Yeah, it's absurd.
If this was Clue, you didn't get any of them right.
So by piling on, again, this comes back to what you were saying before, which is the Night of the Long Sword. It's like, well, wait a second. If this was that, if it is what I'm saying it is, well, that would explain the Night of the Long Sword. All of a sudden, it's like, well, all his cousins were trying to kill him in Vegas just 5 weeks earlier? Whoa, no wonder we covered it up. Now, Mansour bin Mukrin was killed in his helicopter on November 5th. He didn't make it to the Ritz-Carlton. So he must have played a special role because there was a message there. He didn't just kill Mansour bin Mukrin, he killed his entire entourage. 11 people. Before they got to the Ritz-Carlton. All the others, oh, what a shame. Mansour didn't make it here. Well, that's odd. Yeah, let's lock the doors. Where's Shakira? I thought Shakira was here. That's what they thought they were going to, a Shakira concert. or Shakira. I don't know. I don't know the difference, but
Yeah,
they thought they were going to some concert party thing, and then they locked the doors. Next thing you know, Blackwater is beating Al-Walid bin Talal on the bottom of his feet with a garden hose. Where's all the video footage? Where's the video footage? Where's the footage of all those parties that you used to have with Hillary Clinton? Mitch McConnell. Where's that footage?
it's a good trade for keeping quiet.
Let's get all that footage right now. He lost a lot of weight. And in November of 2017, I made a prediction. I said that Al-Walid bin Talal will never step foot on American soil ever again. And he has not. In 5 years. And he used to be on Maria Bartiromo twice a week. Yeah. And he has never stepped foot on American soil since the shooting. So I believe he was behind it. He set it up. He sets it up.
Why does MBS spare him?
Because he's a sod. Because he's a sod. It's like The Godfather. It's, not till mama dies do we kill Fredo. He's a sod. And so what he does is he chops up Jamal Khashoggi, puts it on video, shows all these guys, and says, you want to keep playing games? Or you want to accept where we're at? You want to keep playing games?
It's game over.
Yeah. It's like next time I'm going to bring in the deli slicer. I mean, I have no remorse. No remorse. You guys are trying to kill me. Yeah, you're trying to kill my wife and kids. Here's the recording. I heard the recording, so I cut him up into any questions. Like I said, I do the same thing. Now, again, I kind of like MBS. I think he and his brother, Khalid, are the future Saudi Arabia. He's letting women drive. He threw this thing called...
Wait.
What? Yeah, but you're right. That might be a mistake. Yeah, we might need to talk to him and say, "Yeah, dude, don't go crazy." Yeah.
You're right. Come
the
on,
dance.
Man.
Yeah, the dance.
You had going for you.
Did you see the thing he did in the desert? He did this big dance thing in the desert called something in the big something. I don't know. This massive EDM dance party. Steve Aoki, David Goyeta, all the biggest DJs in the world. In Saudi Arabia.
With many of those DJs, by the way.
All right, so he does this thing in Saudi Arabia. I asked them, say, did you just do a thing for MBS in Saudi Arabia a year or two ago? This big thing in the desert. It's like Burning Man in Saudi Arabia, and he pays for the whole thing. Now the old guard in Saudi Arabia is losing their mind over this. To them, that they're like, what are you doing? This is the home of, this is Mecca. This is, you can't, we don't do that here. Yeah, we don't do that here. And he's like, if we're going to be competitive with Dubai, we have to. So he wants to, so he's looking at Dubai and going, wait a second. We're the ones with all the money. How are they getting all the tourism stuff? We need to do that here. So he's building this NEOM and all that. I'm a big fan of his because I look at the Night of the Long Sword differently. I look at it as justice served. Bruce Rydell and Brookings and all these idiots are like, oh, he's off the reservation. He's lost his mind. He's, this is insane. So you guys don't think there's any explanation for it? There's no good reason. It was just corruption, huh? These guys were just skimming off the top, huh?
Power.
Yeah. Just skimming off the top, huh? No. They've been trying to kill him, and that's what we saw that night. That was an assassination attempt on the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia staying at the Four Seasons on Ashura. And then it introduces a whole bunch of interesting twists. Was Jared Kushner his guest that night? Why was Jared Kushner given a $2 billion investment? Because those two are blood brothers. Because they spent that night together. Jared Kushner was invited to be, and maybe with Ivanka, their guests for Ashura. It's like inviting somebody to Passover dinner. You invite somebody to Ashura dinner at her suite at the Four Seasons. But Jared...
And that answers some of the questions about, what was going on at the Trump and the response at the Trump.
And Trump's relationship with Lombardo and giving Lombardo that that I know that that you keep your mouth shut, right? And Ivanka drops out of politics immediately after the event. She was very vocal, very active. Trump was taking her everywhere. She was right at his side. It was almost like she's going to be the next Trump president. Kushner's going to be the first man. He'll do the deals, but she's got the charm. She's got that princess. She's got the princess charm. She's got the princess charm. Right after the October 1st event, she's out. She's out. Yeah. She is out. And recently he said she's checked out. Recently he said she's not going to be campaigning with me for 2024. She's checked out. Yep, she got scared. She got scared.
No, John, listen, it's fascinating. I hate to do it, but I do have to run.
It's fine, dude. This has been fantastic.
No, thank you so much, man. I feel, to be honest, we talk about like laying out a theory that answers all of the questions out there, and I've tried to listen. People have bits and pieces of it, but this is the first time that I have something that I would feel confident repeating without a disclaimer, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. So right, the way because again, the helicopter thing, no brainer, but the MBS was there that night. Like that's a game breaker for me, because that's the part I haven't been able to answer for people. So listen, we're going to do that Twitter space. I hope you'll have this up so we can share it.
Yeah, I'll get this up before. Yeah. So by the time we do our thing on Twitter, I've never done a Twitter space before, so I don't even know how to do it. So you might have to send me something, because I don't know how to even do that. Is it on video? We're on video?
No video. It's just voice.
Just voice. Yeah. Okay. All right.
And you have to do it from your phone.
I can't do it from Twitter on a computer. I don't use Twitter on a phone.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it doesn't work from a computer.
Yeah, no, it's only from the phone.
I don't have that. I don't use smartphones. Guess why? Oh. Same reason I get. Yeah, I don't. Homie, don't play that. Yeah, yeah.
Dude, so great In Living Color reference.
Indeed. I'm glad you got it. Look, I'd love to do some of those events with you. I'd love to have you back on the show. We can dig into this more, or I go on your show, whatever. Again, there's hundreds of these videos, so it's like you can ask me about any aspect of the shooting. You say, well, what about that? There were people who said they saw this flying over there. I'll show you a video and say, oh, yep, we did that here, and here's where we cover it. So,
well, you can listen from your computer, right?
Okay.
So you'll be able to listen, and then I'll send you my cell phone number.
Okay.
And we can communicate. So if I have questions or I need to expound on something, or somebody saying something stupid.
Well, I can be in the chat, that DM thing in Twitter. We can do that. But the other thing I would say is, if you want to do one of these Zoom things and ask, Matt and Mindy and Laura, come, let's do it. I love it. Again, I think Mindy did an awesome job. I think I was just a little heartbroken that I didn't get to sit with her in the video and go through some of the stuff with her. But again, Laura and I.
And I'll say this, right? We have a very small group of truth tellers, right? Who may not all have the pieces of the puzzle, right? But there's a very small number of us who are willing still to talk about this and are trying to push the truth, versus all, right? And we need to make sure we're focusing our fire not on the other people who are well-intentioned and trying to.
Yeah. Oh, exactly. And all I want to do is just make sure that people are interpreting what they're seeing correctly, and that's it. Absolutely. Again, I've done a bunch of videos where I got stuff wrong, where I thought it was a helicopter, but it was a jet, and I've made those videos private. There's probably 30, 40 of those that are already private, but I can't thank you enough, man.
This has been a pleasure, man.
Thank you. This was awesome.
I'm so glad we connected, and you were able to walk me through all this stuff. And listen, I'd love to come on and talk about pandemic and COVID. I have some wild stories with that too. So,
Dr. Judy and I were doing a radio show together for months, right? So she and I know each other very well. So
how have we not connected?
That's what I'm saying. So let's do another show. Send me a message. We'll do another show next week or something like that. I'm looking forward to it.
Right on, John. Thank you so much.
Thanks a million. All right, take care.
I was so unbelievably certain that it was coming from the helicopter, because it was so close. And I remember thinking, why is it that close? Oh my God, I think the shooting is coming from the helicopter. Just in that moment was so certain, just not a doubt in my mind that there was shooting coming from the helicopter. But I do remember like seeing they have those openings on the side, and I could see like a shadow, like not facing, like facing out towards us. So not like sitting back how you would in a helicopter strapped in. He was like, or, you know, they were like looking down at us. And it was like, I could see their heads, then underneath I could see like a big blob, and I'm like, I couldn't tell what that was. And so I think that's another reason why I was really sure about it, because they were like looking down on us. And I really wish like I could remember every single detail of that night, but I just, for some reason, I just knew it was coming out of that helicopter.